Did you know that in 2018 there were over 759,000 franchise units that generated over $760 billion in sales and employed over 8 million people? My name is Tariq Johnson, and I own two franchise locations that are 2,400 miles apart from each other. And in this video, we're going to have an honest conversation on whether you should buy a franchise. First, let me tell you what this video is not. This video is not a solicitation or sales pitch for you to invest in any franchise or business. Deciding to invest in a franchise could be the biggest decision of your life. And in this video, I'm going to cover exactly what I believe you must know about owning a franchise from a franchise owner's perspective. Before we get started, go ahead and drop me a comment below and ask me any question that you have about the franchise process. I do my best to respond to all the comments personally. Also, give this video a like down below and subscribe to the channel. I'll be posting videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, sharing with you my learning experience of owning my two franchise locations, as well as having worked with over 1,000 clients personally as a financial advisor and traveling the country as a speaker for Tony Robbins. So let's get started. So number one is, why do you want to buy a franchise? Are you looking to replace your full-time income and leave a full-time job or corporate job and own a franchise to completely support your family? Are you looking to just create an additional income stream and have something for retirement, or just create a part-time income and find somewhere that you can invest your money in? Or are you looking to build real wealth and try to get rich from owning a franchise? When my wife and I made the decision to invest in our first franchise, it was going to be a significant investment. And the reason why we were deciding to invest in a franchise is because I eventually wanted to leave my work as a financial advisor, and we wanted to do something that was going to put ourselves in the best position to have an existing income stream that was already going. So that way, when I made the transition, we would be in a really strong position. Deciding your why on why you might want to buy a franchise will literally affect every other decision that you make along the process. It will decide what type of franchise that you invest in, whether you're going to wind up being an absentee owner or be active in the business, what industry you're going to get involved in. Are you going to get involved in a service-based industry? This is going to decide everything for you, and it's really important to be very clear about what your objective and why you want to own a franchise business. Number two is money. So the average franchise costs about $250,000 to get up and running. And look, that is a very important number to think about. Obviously, if you're looking to open something like a Taco Bell or McDonald's or KFC or Burger King, you're going to be on the higher end. I mean, franchises can range from $10,000 all the way in the millions of dollars to get open. And that should scare you, because people have lost a lot of money investing in franchises, investing in the wrong type of franchises, investing in the wrong brands, and not running them well. So money is something that you really have to think about. And ultimately, your financial situation will really determine what direction you can go with franchises. Most franchisors have a net worth requirement. They require you to have a certain amount of liquid money as well as a certain net worth in order to even qualify to be able to purchase one of their franchises. There are cleaning businesses that are as little as $10,000 to invest in. Those are likely going to have less of a net worth requirement. But keep in mind, the lower the cost of the investment for the franchise, the more effort and work you'll likely have to do on the front end in order to get that franchise up and running. So if you invest in that cleaning franchise, as an example, you'll probably have to hit the ground and network and door knock and prospect and do all these things in order to get customers for that franchise business. Now, if you don't have any money to invest, then I've actually made a video on exactly how you can invest in a franchise with no money. So I'll link that up in the description below, and go ahead and check that video out. Guys, the last thing to cover about the money part is that investing in a franchise is a really, really serious decision. As I mentioned before, there are people who have lost a lot of money. They've lost their life savings investing in franchises because they didn't know what they were getting into. Going into step number 3 is thinking about buying an existing location versus a new location. The reason why this is something really important to consider when thinking about if you should buy a franchise is because if you buy an existing location that already has customers, already has sales, is already generating a profit, then the likelihood of you succeeding goes much, much higher because you have all of those things in place and you're usually paying a price for the business that's based on the amount of profit that it's generating. So as long as you don't come in and screw something up, or there's not major competition that opens up, then it's usually going to lower your risk and put you at a better position in succeeding. Now, when you're talking to a franchise company, you should ask them if they have any existing locations for sale. Oftentimes, they're not going to volunteer that information because if you think about what a franchise company is really interested in, oftentimes is they want to get new locations opened up. When franchise companies talk a lot about growing same store sales or same unit sales, then they're really focused on increasing the sales for existing franchisees. And that's when you know that a franchisor really has the best interest at heart for existing franchises. Now, the other option is that you can invest in a new location. And so obviously investing in a new franchise location carries a higher amount of risk associated to it because you don't have any customers, you aren't established yet, you don't have any staff, you don't have any processes, and you don't have any operations. Now, there are benefits to opening up a brand new location. You might be able to lock in a really good location for your business that's in a really great area. There might not be any competition in the area that you're looking to open your franchise in. So you really have to weigh the pros and cons versus opening up a new location or buying an existing location. When my wife and I opened our first franchise location, we were really nervous about it. I mean, it cost around $300,000 to get that first location opened. $300,000 is obviously a really big investment. So what I did was I was really strategic about the actions that I took and the way that I thought about the process of us opening, and we were actually able to become profitable our second month in business. So in less than 60 days, we were able to turn a profit in our franchise. This was huge in helping to alleviate some of those fears and those nerves that we had around the franchise business and made us feel a lot better about the decision that we made. If you're interested in knowing how I actually got the business profitable in 60 days, I documented that entire process and created a free 7-step blueprint to how I became profitable in 60 days. I'll drop a link for that below too. It's totally free. Make sure you grab it. It'll be really helpful whether you own a franchise or a business that isn't a franchise because those steps are applicable to any type of business. So one thing to mention about existing locations and the immediate cash flow that they provide is that there's also another really big benefit in potentially buying an existing location. And I'm going to share that with you in step number 5, so make sure you stick around for that. Okay, number 4, and if you should buy a franchise, is you. Now, what do I mean by that? The most important aspect to you succeeding in a franchise or failing in a franchise is you. Now, when I say that, think about it. It starts from the process of selecting the companies that you're looking at and possibly investing in. It starts with the questions that you ask, the process that you go through, the due diligence process, the research that you do, the location that you pick. Ultimately, the constant throughout all of that is you. If you have a track record of not being able to make good decisions, then that might affect your ability to succeed as a franchise owner. And when you're putting up a lot of money to get involved in a business, then you really need to do a self-analysis and a gut check to really make sure that you are going to be up for the challenge. Now, another thing to consider is what your skill sets are. It's really important to make sure that you're aligning a possible franchise opportunity with the skill sets that you currently have. Now, does that mean that if you're planning on opening a food franchise that you have to know food and be good at food? Absolutely not. My background is in motivational speaking and financial advising, and I have two juice bar businesses. I had no background in that whatsoever, although I was really passionate about a healthy lifestyle and making juices and smoothies and different things like that. What I did have a strength in was the financials of a business, operations, and really finding and recruiting talent and managing that process. So I felt comfortable in owning a franchise because I'd be able to follow the system. So another thing to think about is, can you handle your lifestyle potentially getting disrupted? Franchises and owning a business is filled with challenges. I mean, if you own a business right now, then you know what I'm talking about. A crazy story that happened was the day before my wife and I were getting ready to leave and move across the state. In the middle of the night, someone broke into our business along with a number of other businesses in our shopping center, shattered the windows. I mean, just made a mess. It was a crazy situation. Stuff like that may not happen often. Hopefully, that never happens to you, and it might not ever happen to you. But our life was completely disrupted for those 2 days. And then my life was completely disrupted for the next few weeks, handling the insurance claim and the process and all the things that happen as a byproduct of that break-in. If you're used to the normal comfort of a corporate job where once you leave your job, you get to put it aside and you're not really disrupted at home, then really thinking about investing in a franchise is something that you have to take a really deep look at, because it's possible and likely that your normal and current lifestyle will be disrupted in some way. And so the question really becomes, is the rewards that you'll get from that franchise worth the lifestyle disruption that will occur? And when I say rewards, I don't just mean financial rewards. Because even if you make the same amount of money that you're making in another job or in another business, if you have the freedom and flexibility to be able to set your hours and spend more time with your friends and family, or go on more vacations, then that's a benefit that you really can't attach a number to. And it's a very intangible benefit. But it's really important to note that there's likely going to have to be some sacrifices made if you do own a franchise. And it's not just a life of glamour. There are a lot of real challenges. It's not anything that's sexy, and it could take you a number of years before you see the fruits of your labor really kick in. Okay, number 5. So I know I said before that number 5 was going to be a really important topic. I actually forgot something, so I'm going to move that to number 6. So make sure you continue to watch, and I'll tell you it in step number 6. Number 5 is following the system. So when you buy a franchise, the whole point in buying a franchise is that you are buying the name, the process, and the system. And you really have to be a person that is okay with following the rules and the system. If you're someone who really doesn't like to be told what to do and doesn't like authority, and I don't really want to use authority because a franchisor, you don't really want to see them as an authoritative figure. But if you're someone that doesn't traditionally follow the rules and likes to do things on your own and really kind of thinks outside of the box, then maybe buying a franchise isn't for you. Maybe you should start your own business instead, because the whole point of buying a franchise is following the system. And if you don't follow the system and you start doing things on your own, it's possible you can get in trouble with the franchise company. You can get fined or even sued. I've known franchise owners who started to break the rules with the franchise company, and they really refused to stop doing it and really got themselves in a bad situation with the franchisor. Then things just really aren't good from there. So it's really important to make sure that you have the ability to follow the system, follow the process, and if that's not something you're interested in, then you should not buy a franchise. Now, that doesn't mean you can't be creative and use your own ideas and your own talents and skill sets. Obviously, you're owning your own business, and so every day you're going to have to use your own strengths and your skill sets in order to make sure that that business is successful. But you're doing that within the operations of the system and the processes that are used. Now, what I would recommend is talking to existing franchisees within the system and asking them about how flexible and how open the franchisor is to new ideas. ideas that franchisees come up with and implementing them into the business. So, number six, and the last thing that you should consider when thinking about buying a franchise is, drum roll, your exit strategy. Now, real quick, if you're still with me, make sure you hit like on the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps other people see this information, and I'm going to be putting out really amazing content around franchises, franchise ownership, and again, what I've learned and the mistakes that I've made. So, in thinking about your exit strategy, I'm a firm believer that you should be committed to whatever you're doing. When people aren't committed, that's oftentimes when they fail. But it's important to think about an exit strategy with a franchise because you're owning a business. And number one, you're not going to live forever. And number two, things could go wrong and changes could happen in your life where you either want to sell or get rid of the business. And it's really important to think about what that looks like and start with the end in mind, because that will help determine what decisions you make in even buying a franchise or in how you run the franchise during the time in which you buy it. So, do you plan on receiving an income for as long as possible with the business and then selling the business at that point, or passing it down to a child or a grandchild or a family member? Do you plan on getting the business profitable or growing profits and then trying to sell the business? So it's really important to think about what your exit strategy is with the business, because again, that's going to drive your decisions that you're making. So what happens if the business isn't going how you planned it? What if you don't like it? What if you're not succeeding? What if you aren't making money? These are all things that you have to think about when buying a franchise so that you can be prepared and equipped to handle those situations. One of the things that I would highly recommend is to take a look at either existing locations within that franchise that you're looking at or within that industry and see what they sell for. What are they priced at? What are they priced at based on the profit margins that they're making? What are they priced at based on how much it costs for those locations to build out? Oftentimes you'll be surprised that a lot of franchises have really poor resale value. And so if you plan on only having the franchise for a few years and selling it, you could put yourself in a position where you're losing a lot of money. This is one of the things that is really, 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 really important to think about is your exit strategy and what's your plan. And the more research you do on the front end, the more you're going to be prepared on the back end. So guys, thanks for sticking it out with me all the way to the end. I hope you enjoyed this video. Go ahead and share it to someone who could benefit from it. And again, make sure you leave me a comment on any of the franchise questions that you have, and I'll make sure to do my best to respond to them personally. I'll see you in the next one.